So only yesterday I did a video talking about Daniel Dubois and Oleksandr Usyk, them having their rematch, and it looking likely, judging by what Frank Warren is saying, what Alex Krasuk is now saying, that they're looking to do that at some point this summer in Wembley Stadium. It does then leave a bit of a question as to, okay, well, what happens to the rest of the division? I know the WBA are giving an exemption for Oleksandr Usyk for 2 years. He's probably not going to need 2 years, really. He'll probably be gone by then, but he has that. WBC have said they're not going to get involved with, messing up Undisputed or anything like that. Therefore, and I'll talk about Ajay Kabayel and some of the things that could be happening because I'm not looking to. I'll talk about it in a separate video. I'll talk about that in a separate video. But they mentioned that they'll have him, defend his interim title, so that's not going to happen. IBF, I don't know. Oh, well, obviously they were meant to call an eliminator between Ajagba and Bakoli. They still might fight, but whether that's an eliminator now for the IBF, we don't know. So Dubois is in the clear. That then just leaves the WBO. Now, you may remember Joseph Parker was going to vacate that WBO title. He would have been stripped of it as soon as the bell went, had he challenged Daniel Dubois. But since he didn't and ended up fighting Bakoli, it then became a defense of his interim title. So I go on Ring Magazine and I see this article. Oleksandr Usyk versus Joseph Parker mandatory fight is ordered by the WBO. The World Boxing Organization's president has revealed that his organization is now ordering their world champion Oleksandr Usyk to make a mandatory defense against interim champion Joseph Parker. WBO is officially ordering the enforcement of the WBO mandatory between Usyk and Parker. This is to essentially terminate the status of interim champion. This action aligns with our firm policy of maintaining only one champion per weight class, the president stated on social media. Parker was in action last month in Riyadh when he knocked out late replacement Martin Bakoli in 2 rounds. Oleksandr Usyk retained his WBO and unified world titles when he secured a 12th-round decision over Tyson Fury in their December rematch, which also took place in Riyadh. The WBO have given Usyk and Parker 30 days to reach an agreement before purse bids are called. Earlier today, Sky Sports reported that Usyk's team had begun discussions for a potential unification clash with IBF champion Dubois. The recent order by the WBO has certainly created a hurdle for a potential matchup. Both Parker and Dubois are promoted by Frank Warren of Queensberry Promotions. The two boxers were scheduled to collide last month in Riyadh, but Dubois withdrew fight week with an illness, which led to Bakoli accepting the fight on 2 days' notice. There's not much else to read there. So, well, right. The WBO, along with the IBF, are a lot more stringent when it comes to mandatories. We do know that. And the WBO and the IBF, out of the 4 sanctioning bodies, they are the 2 most integral. Now, again, you can question the integrity of both the IBF and the WBO on certain things that they have done. But for the most part, in comparison to the WBC and WBA, I mean, they really are as white as the driven snow in comparison to those 2 guys, because they really are just away with the fairies. They make the rules up as they go along. It's a weird one because I'd watch Dubois versus Usyk. I think it's a good fight. I think it's a more interesting fight this time around, and I thought it was interesting the first time. But Dubois has definitely improved. He's a lot more confident in himself, and Usyk isn't getting any younger. Having said that, I said it at the time when Joseph Parker fought Martin Bakoli and knocked him out in 2 rounds. He looked very good doing that, but obviously you got to take it in context. It says 2 days notice. I mean, that's generous. I mean, he really only arrived in Saudi Arabia that morning of the fight, so you got to take it all in context. But the fact of the matter is, Joseph Parker has looked rejuvenated over the last few years. His last run of form, albeit the Bakoli fight, will put in the inverted commas, there was a lot of things going on, but the Zhang fight and the Wilder fight, can't argue with them. He deserves a title shot. He certainly does. He should have got one in Riyadh, but obviously we know what happened. And I do think he's long overdue a shot. I really do. And Parker versus Usyk is, for me, an interesting fight because I look at the styles and I think, yeah, Parker could be an interesting match for Oleksandr Usyk. Again, Daniel Dubois, I've seen him fight Oleksandr Usyk. I've seen him be soundly beaten by Oleksandr Usyk. It was not a competitive fight. It was not a close fight, the first fight. Do I think the second fight could be a bit more competitive? Yeah, I do. It probably will. But I'm still favouring Usyk very, very heavily. Very heavily. With Parker, again, it's altogether different. It's a different style. He won't be as aggressive as someone like a Daniel Dubois. He is more wary about defense. He's a decent long-range boxer when he wants to. So Parker's an interesting style for Usyk to tackle. And again, I think he's long overdue a title shot. Because if you think about it like this, if Usyk fights Daniel Dubois next, where does it leave Joseph Parker in the heavyweight division? Caballe's not going to fight him, you would imagine, or because he's obviously going to go do his own thing on top of that in a separate video. If Fury comes back, Fury's not going to fight him. They're best friends. He's not going to fight Anthony Joshua, you would imagine, because I think AJ is really holding out for Tyson Fury. Who else is there really amongst the kind of the upper echelons of the heavyweight division who could get him a big fight? Jojo's rematch, really? Do we really want to see that at this point? Zhilei Zhang, etc.? No. So with Parker, without a title shot, you kind of get the impression he could get lost in the shuffle, so to speak, which I hope isn't the case. I really do, because he's been looking very good under Andy Lee as of late. So him against Oleksandr Usyk, if it is going to be ordered, and as they said, they have 30 days to negotiate, given the fact that Frank Warren is the promoter of Joseph Parker, given the fact that he's very close with the WBO, I suspect, and he obviously, look, Frank Warren made no secret of the fact that although he is the promoter of both Joseph Parker and Daniel Dubois, we knew who his favourite was going into the fight. Obviously it didn't happen, but the face-offs, everything, we knew Daniel Dubois was the favourite. Frank Warren was, stapling his colours to the mast from the very get-go. Daniel Dubois was his guy. Even though he's promoting both guys, which I think is wrong, you should try and at least appear neutral instead of sitting in Daniel Dubois' corner when you're having the face-to-face. That wasn't right as far as I'm concerned. I wonder, will Frank Warren have words with the WBO, have words with Team Parker, and look to get a step-aside deal done? They tend to, even if there is mandatories and stuff like that, for undisputed, for unifications, they tend to be willing to work with the promoters and with the fighters when that is the case, whether it be the IBF, the WBO, etc., etc. So although I'd like to see Parker get his shot, I would imagine he will look to go down the road of step-aside money. And I would imagine that will likely be offered. Step-aside money for fighters, I mean, you're kind of, you really do raise an eyebrow if fighters don't take it, because you're essentially being paid sometimes millions for doing nothing at all. In actual fact, sometimes what they'll do is they'll give you step-aside money and they'll give you a place on the card. So maybe co-main event against whoever. So you get two paydays. Basically, you get free money for just stepping aside, and then you get a payday on top of that for fighting on the card. So financially, it's a bit of a win-win for Joseph Parker in that regard. I mean, it's a real win-win in that sense if he does take step aside. And I think that's likely what will happen, with the guarantee most likely that he will face the winner. And if it is, we'll say, Oleksandr Usyk, well, he'll probably be elevated to full champion, because if Oleksandr Usyk fights Daniel Dubois and he beats him, they'll inevitably announce that he has to fight Parker next, which again is mandatory. He should be obliged to do it. But then he'll probably just vacate and look to go ahead with that kind of gimmicky fight with the UFC guy. That way Parker's elevated to full champion. So for Parker, it's a bit of a win-win situation. If you think about it in many ways, it's a win-win. Best case scenario, he gets the world title fight. He gets to fight Usyk, big money. Never know what might happen. Worst case scenario, he gets step-aside money and he'll probably be elevated anyway. So, he's in a good position, Joseph Parker, in that regard. So yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. And at ANG Man, we recorded that last night. It will be out tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.